They had a plan. A careful, calculated, step-by-step plan. And it was working. Until one thing went wrong. One sound. One unexpected moment. And everything they had prepared for collapsed in seconds. A former FBI agent who has spent years recovering evidence that human eyes cannot see, watched the drone footage of Nancy Guthrie's property frame by frame. And what she found, or more importantly, what she did not find, may be the single most important detail in this entire investigation. And here is the part that should concern all of us. That evidence may already be gone forever. Stay with me. Because what I am about to show you will completely change how you see this case. Nancy Guthrie lived alone in Tucson, Arizona. A quiet neighborhood. A familiar routine. The kind of home that feels completely removed from danger. On February 1st, that changed forever. Nancy disappeared. And from that moment, investigators, journalists, and thousands of people across the country have been trying to piece together exactly what happened inside and outside that property. Now on day 87, something has shifted. A new voice has entered this investigation. Not a neighbor. Not an anonymous online source. A former special agent from the FBI's own evidence response team. And what she observed has moved the entire focus of this case to one very specific location. The front circular driveway. But before we get there, you need to understand who this woman is. Because that is what makes everything she says carry a completely different weight. Her name is Morin O'Connell. For 4 years she served as a special agent with the FBI's evidence response team. And this is not a regular department. This is an elite unit called in only when evidence is at its most fragile. When one mistake can erase the truth permanently. O'Connell did not work behind a desk. She worked at ground level. Scene after scene. Kneeling in silence, using precision tools and calibrated lighting to find what nobody else could see. Her specialty was impression analysis. Tire marks. Footprints. The kind of evidence that does not announce itself. The kind that whispers so quietly that only the most trained eyes can hear it. When drone footage from Nancy Guthrie's property began circulating, O'Connell did not watch it the way the public did. She analyzed it. Frame by frame. With the same discipline she brought to hundreds of FBI crime scenes. She then sat down with reporter Brian Enton and shared her findings on record, under her own name. What she said next changes this entire case. From the very first moment O'Connell reviewed that footage, one detail jumped out immediately. A single set of tire impressions. Not two sets. No overlapping tracks. No signs of multiple vehicles coming and going. Just one clean, consistent pattern pressed into the decomposed granite surface of that front driveway. Now here is what most people missed entirely. While the public was focused on the back gate, the alley, the side entrances, O'Connell's eyes went straight down. To the ground. To the driveway itself. And the design of that driveway is not random. It is circular. A looping layout that allows any vehicle to enter from one side, move through completely, and exit from the other side without ever reversing. No hesitation. No awkward turning. No wasted seconds. On the surface it sounds like just an architectural detail. But through a forensic lens it becomes something far more significant. A circular driveway is built for one thing. Efficiency. A vehicle enters, completes its purpose, and disappears. Clean. Controlled. And nearly invisible to anyone watching from the street. O'Connell's professional conclusion was direct and clear. The vehicle used to transport Nancy Guthrie was most likely positioned in that front circular driveway. This was not a guess. This was a conclusion built from physical layout, movement analysis, and years of reconstructing real events from trace evidence. But this raises the question that nobody was asking. Why the front? Why not the back where there is more cover and less visibility? The answer to that question changes everything. Here is what actually happened. At least according to O'Connell's analysis. The original plan was never the front driveway. The original plan involved the rear of the property, the back gate, the alley, the concealed areas that offered cover and kept the operation completely out of sight. It was methodical. It was calculated. And it was working. Until a dog started barking. A neighboring dog reacted to something unfamiliar. A sound. A movement. A presence near the back of the property that did not belong there. And in a quiet Tucson neighborhood at an unusual hour, that bark did not stay quiet. It traveled. It triggered lights in nearby homes. It pulled eyes toward windows. It shattered the silence that whoever was at that property absolutely needed to maintain. In that single unplanned moment, control disappeared. What was a carefully managed operation suddenly carried real, immediate, visible risk. And when risk appears in a situation like this, plans change in seconds. The vehicle was pulled away from the rear, repositioned to the front, to the circular driveway. And Nancy Guthrie was taken out through the front door instead. What was designed as a secondary entrance became the entire escape route. And that one adjustment, forced by something as small and unpredictable as a barking dog, reframes every single thing we thought we understood about how this happened. Now let us talk about what that driveway surface actually means. Because this is where the case becomes both fascinating and deeply alarming. The driveway is not concrete. It is not asphalt. It is decomposed granite. A loose granular material that is extremely common in desert landscaping across Tucson. And from a forensic standpoint, it is one of the most complicated surfaces an investigator can face. On one hand, decomposed granite can actually capture tire impressions with surprising detail. As vehicle weight presses into the surface, it displaces the material and leaves behind a readable pattern. That pattern can reveal tread design, tire width, and in the strongest cases, unique wear characteristics that could potentially identify a specific tire on a specific vehicle. But here is the problem that should concern everyone following this case. Decomposed granite does not hold evidence. Unlike wet soil or mud that locks impressions firmly in place, this surface is dangerously fragile. One footstep can distort it. A passing vehicle can erase it entirely. And in a desert environment like Tucson, where wind constantly reshapes the surface, that evidence window can close in minutes. Not hours. Minutes. So how do you even recover tire impressions from something this unstable? O'Connell explained the exact technique. It requires oblique lighting. A light source placed low to the ground, positioned almost completely parallel to the surface, so that shadows fall deep into every tiny groove and ridge. What is completely invisible under normal lighting conditions suddenly becomes a clear, documentable, measurable pattern. Think of it like shining a flashlight across a carpet at floor level. Footprints that were invisible from above suddenly appear in sharp detail. But even finding the impression is only the beginning. Proper forensic documentation requires measurement scales placed precisely on the same plane as the mark. It requires exact camera angles. It requires a trained technician at ground level giving that specific area complete, focused attention. And above everything else, it requires speed. Every minute that passes. Every person who walks nearby. Every vehicle that moves through that space. Every gust of desert wind. All of it degrades that evidence further and further until nothing remains. This is the standard O'Connell applied when she watched that drone footage. She was not looking for dramatic moments or obvious clues. She was watching for process. For signs that the driveway was being treated as the forensic priority it should have been. And what she saw made her stop. No technicians working at ground level. No visible measurement scales placed on the surface. No angled lighting sweeping across the decomposed granite. No clear indication that the front circular driveway was being systematically processed for tire impression recovery. O'Connell was careful and precise with her conclusion. She acknowledged openly that this work may have happened earlier. Before sunrise. Before any cameras arrived. Before media had access to the property. But her point did not waver. Based on everything publicly available, there is no visible confirmation that proper tire impression recovery took place in that critical front area. And coming from someone whose entire career was built on noticing exactly this kind of detail, that absence is not a small observation. It is a serious concern. Because in forensic investigations, what is missing from the record matters just as much as what is confirmed. While the driveway question remains open, other evidence continues to develop quietly behind the scenes. Approximately 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home, investigators recovered a black glove. It closely resembled the glove visible on an individual captured in doorbell camera footage from the night of the disappearance. DNA testing revealed genetic material from an unknown male with no confirmed connection to Nancy. That profile was entered into CODIS, the National Combined DNA Index System. But CODIS only produces results if that person's DNA is already in the database. If there is no existing record, the system goes completely silent. Which is why genetic genealogy now appears to be active in this investigation. By cross-referencing the unknown DNA against profiles in public ancestry databases, analysts can identify distant relatives and build a family tree that slowly, precisely narrows toward one individual. This exact method has solved cases that sat cold for 30 years. Simultaneously, the FBI's Cellular Analysis Survey team is believed to be processing cell tower data from the critical window around February 1st. Every device within range of those towers left a signal. Not a conversation. A connection. A location. A movement pattern that can reconstruct exactly where someone was and where they went next. If the person responsible carried a phone that night, even for a few minutes, that movement may already be fully mapped inside an FBI database that the public cannot see. Let us bring all of this together. 2 scenarios emerge directly from O'Connell's forensic analysis. Scenario 1. The front circular driveway was always the intended point of operation. The back gate, the alley, the rear areas, those may have been deliberately used or staged to pull investigative attention away from where the actual transfer happened. Scenario 2. The original plan involved the rear of the property completely. But an unexpected disruption, a barking dog, an unfamiliar sound, a moment of unplanned risk, forced a last-second change. The vehicle repositioned to the front. The plan adapted under pressure. And Nancy was removed through the front entrance. Both scenarios arrive at the same conclusion. The front circular driveway is not a background detail. It is the central location. The most likely point where Nancy Guthrie was placed into a vehicle and taken away from her home. And if tire impressions existed on that decomposed granite surface and were not captured fast enough, that evidence is not just unexamined. It is gone. Not overlooked. Not delayed. Gone permanently. Lost to footsteps, wind, and the brutally fragile nature of a desert surface that waits for no investigation. Morin O'Connell is not speculating. She is not reacting like the online crowd. She is a former FBI evidence response team agent who spent years at ground level finding truth that no one else could see. She reviewed this footage on record, under her own name, and her conclusion was precise and clear. The front driveway matters. The single tire impression matters. And the absence of visible forensic recovery in that area matters more than most people realize. Somewhere on a loose granite surface in Tucson, there may have been a mark that told the entire story of what happened to Nancy Guthrie. The only question that remains is whether anyone captured it before it disappeared forever. What do you think? Was that evidence recovered in time? Drop your theory in the comments. And if you are following this case, subscribe now because the next update in this investigation may be the one that changes everything.